Overhead pulling and overhead pushing are fundamental for developing upper body strength. So I teach overhead pushing and pulling together because they're reciprocal movements. So I teach people to do pull-ups before they do overhead presses. So the pull-up stretches you into that overhead position to prepare you for the reciprocal push. So let's have a look at the pull-ups. So when you're starting out with pull-ups, I like the rings because they rotate. If you've got any shoulder issues, it just feels a lot better for that natural rotation. If you only have a pull-up bar, that's fine. Doing overhand grip is a lot easier at the bottom, flexibility-wise, but harder at the top. The underhand grip is a lot of a heavier stretch at the bottom, but easier at the top. So it's good to do a mixture of both, or if you have parallel grip, great. The rings just allow for a nice smooth rotation if there's a tight spot there, and it prevents a lot of elbow tendonitis for people. But in saying that, they're both great tools and you want to develop the flexibility to be able to use a bar as well. So let's start out, let's have a look. So basic version you want to start with if you haven't got your first pull-up is to develop a good eccentric pull-up. Now you might just go through some reps to warm up with your feet on the ground. And you might just do a little lift off at the top. And that might be your starting progression. If you are doing those with just a little lift off, I like people to work between 3 and 12 reps. 12 reps is very fast though for doing in 30 seconds, and I like to coach people to use a 30-second interval for loading. You can go a bit longer, that's fine, but it just makes it easier for programming and easier to keep people on track when they're training by themselves. So using that 30-second time frame, so 10 reps is a bit more realistic for most people. To progress that though, you want to come down to a lower rep scheme to do a heavier version. And when you're first starting eccentrics, you might only do 1 or 2, but ideally you work up to doing 3 7-second eccentric reps, and that means you've got to be able to do that first pull-up. I haven't found a person that could do those clean and still have a challenge. That being said, at the beginning you don't want to use that full range, so you might just have a bit of a buffer at the bottom, lift your knees, and you don't quite lock out before you put the feet down, so you just got that little bit extra, but ideally you want to go for that full dead hang where the legs don't touch until you're in a full dead hang. And that's when you have the rings a little bit higher than this, but this is a great place to start if you haven't, because you want to develop good form, good recruitment. So a key thing with pull-ups is to really finish up nice and high and not get in the habit of hunching over. You really want to get that lower trap squeeze, really get the chest right up and be strong in that position. The rings are good because of that rotation, like I mentioned, so you can get the best of both, so you can get more of a parallel grip or overhand grip at the bottom, and then come into that underhand grip pull at the top. You can work isometrics in terms of just holding and pausing at the top and then lowering yourself down. I like that eccentric, but the isometric, that stop, is quite good for developing that control and that position at the top of the lift when you're pulling your shoulder blades down and back. In this setup, I have the rings set up higher, whereas that one I had it so I could still touch my feet at the very top of the lift to spot me into that nice squeeze, just to get that assistance. After that, you've got that control and you can lift off a bit at the top. Then you can make the rings a bit higher so you can jump into that and lower yourself down. So take a nice underhand grip in the rings, traction out, jump up, pause, and then lower down and stretch out. And what I want to do is really try and get that full dead hang, get a bit of a pause at the bottom, pause at the top, and get that nice slow controlled eccentric. Now it's important not to hip hinge like that, stick the butt out and arch the back. It's important to keep that control. The lats are a big muscle, they attach into the lower back, so they'll want to pull your spine like that. So to counteract that happening, you want to use those lower abdominals to tuck the butt under, keep that nice and firm, and I don't encourage crossing the legs. People start crossing their legs they'll do that, and they'll do the same side for their training. They'll always do the same side, and every time they do pull-ups they skew their hips because they're used to having one leg in front of the other, and it's always the same leg. So I always encourage parallel legs when you're doing, and when your legs come off the ground you can curl them. For this I need to curl them so my legs curl behind, so that way when I lower down I get that full traction stretch. If it's higher than that and you can't touch, obviously you can't jump. So you need to have them low enough that your feet can touch to grab them, so you can jump up into it. Pause at the top, squeeze the back, lower down, nice control. And like I said before, if you really want to develop that first pull-up, you're aiming to get 7 seconds for 3 reps. Now once you've got that, then you can go into doing that first rep and integrating that into your workout. So you want a nice dead hang position to pull from. Now if you're doing the hang handstand split warm-up, you're doing all the shrugs, you're doing a lot to get good connective tissue strength in that dead hang position. So it should be getting more and more comfortable. The grip strength should be coming up. So you should be okay to come out of that dead hang and shrug up into that pull-up. Coming down. So if you've only got 1 pull-up, then you might do 2 more reps after that with the assistance with the jump and lower down eccentrically. That is very hard on the body, but it's at the beginning when you first develop pull-ups, it's quite hard to progress because of, you know, obviously 2 being a lot more than 1 and 3 being a lot more. So every rep is a big jump, but then after you've got a bit of a base there, it starts to develop a lot faster. And you want to use that rep spectrum from 3 to 12. 12 is very fast, but you want to try and just inch your way up. So there's different ways to do that. I like to train 30 on, 30 off, 30 on for my overhead press, and then 30 off. In the group sessions for whole body training, I always use that first 30-second rest and overhead pull to do a left leg lunge. And then I use the 30-second rest after the push to do a right leg lunge for people that only train 1 to 2 times a week. Once people are training 3 times a week, they might do a bit of a split program and a whole body program. They're doing more, then the split program works a lot better and you can just rest. Or if you're someone that needs to do mobility work, you could use that rest to just stretch that left lunge and stretch that right lunge, and that might be for you a quad stretch. Might just be a lunge on the floor, just holding the bottom and stretching it out. But you want to have that nice rest interval. Now, if you're struggling on a 2-minute round, doing 30 on, 30 off, 30 on for your overhead press, 30 off, you might switch to a 3-minute round, so you just get a bit more rest before you come back around into that next set of pull-ups. That way you get better next set performance, so you've got a better chance of just building up those reps a little bit more. But it really depends on how much time you have. I like 2-minute rounds, I like 4 rounds, 8 minutes. It's very efficient, very quick. It gets good results, but by all means use 5 rounds, so a bit more volume and a bit more rest, so go on a 3-minute round time. That way you get a much better recovery between sets, so you can push yourself a bit harder if you are really trying to make gains faster. But it's the lifestyle, the long-term lifestyle that's really going to get results. So after you've got that nice 1, 2, 3 pull-up, then you can start to build reps and start to accelerate. So coming into that nice dead hang, coming up nice and fast, controlling. And the way to get, from 3 to 5 to 8 is that, say for example, you just say, okay, I'm up to doing, I can do 4 sets of 3. Then you only need to get 1 extra rep in there somewhere. So you still will do those first 3 fairly fast, and then you still try to come down super slow on that last rep, just to inch towards getting that 4th rep. And then that might be 2 sets of 4 and 2 sets of 3. And then eventually you've got 4 sets of 4, and then you can go up to getting 1 with 5, or it might be that you do 1 with 5, 1 with 3. You're just trying to gradually look at the total reps in your workout. So if you're doing 4 sets of 4, it's 16 total. Gradually work that up, and I'd like people to work up to at least 10 reps for the 4 sets, so 40 reps in a workout before they start to progress to the heavier versions with the weight shifts or weighted pull-ups. So once you have got those fast reps and you're bottoming out, then the easiest way to make it harder after that is just to weight shift. So you'll get that rep, nice, you're on your 10 reps, so now you're coming down and lowering it down one side, pull up, lower down on the other side. So it's going to be a lot harder on that one arm because you're shifting over and you're getting a heavier eccentric on that arm. But it's going to be easier for the double arm going up, but much heavier on the way down, and that way you can increase that loading. Now you can obviously shift further, pull more weight out of that other hand. The other option is obviously to attach a weight belt. This one's quite good. I've had this, I don't know, 10 years or something, a long time. So you just have, a nice pad there. So just pop it around and I can just pop a dumbbell in there. If you don't have weights, obviously this is not going to work, but I would recommend, if you are into your training, to at least get a 5, 10 and 15 kilo set of dumbbells, and then if you've got weight plates, you can put those on. If you're in America, you're in pounds, I don't know what that is, 10, 20, 30 pounds dumbbells, so that way you've got something to work with that makes it heavier. And once you've got extra load, it's kind of like going back to doing the first pull-up again. So you might, you're going to do less reps, and you can work in the same way. If you've got a weight belt, you can do a little bit of a jump up and then do that eccentric loading to make it heavier on the way down, and you're just trying to work with those lower reps to get a lot stronger. And you might change, I encourage people to change every month. So you might do a month of low reps, a month of high reps, rather than just trying to keep hitting those same rep ranges all the time. It's always good to mix it up a bit. And you might mix up the grip, so you might go from underhand on a bar if you do have a bar, you might go to overhand on a bar, you might go to parallel grip, and you want to get that diversity, so you're just developing the forearm in different ways. And it also helps with that overuse condition that can occur if you're just grinding it out. It breaks up the monotony, and it also makes it more interesting. So 1 month is low reps, 1 month is high reps. Or if you're doing pull-ups twice a week, most of the time what I'll do is one of my workouts will be a low rep workout, and one of my pull-up and overhead press workouts will be a high rep workout. And it just gets different fiber types going. It's a different type of fatigue. One's a lot heavier, putting a lot heavier load into the structure, and the other one's lighter, but giving a lot more volume into the structure. So ultimately you're just trying to progress to that one arm pull-up, so you can do that, or the body weight pull-up where you've got your own weight plus the weight of yourself hanging off you. So those two are good standards to work towards, but for most of us they're a fair way off, but if you keep progressing towards it, that's part of it, and your body's going to look better for it, you're going to be stronger, and if you can remain injury-free, it makes it even better. So key thing for that is that reciprocal pull-up press style of training. So you're balancing the joint out, so that way the pull-up is mirrored by the overhead press. Now for a lot of people, overhead pressing is very hard because they're tight. So for example, if I'm going into an overhead press and my lats are really tight, then I'm going to want to do it like that. It's very hard to get up like that. So that's why when you do pull-ups, you always want to use the rep to stretch it. So you want to get right down into that nice dead hang position and stretch those lats out. Pull the ribs in and then go again. Stretch it out. Never waste a rep. And a big thing for me is that if I see someone, if you can get up in a pull-up, don't waste coming down. It's always easy to come down, so make the most of that rep and make sure you go all the way down into that dead hang. That way you're going to get stronger through that connective tissue, and you're going to develop in a lot better way. And you're also going to make it much easier to press overhead like that. Now, if you're struggling with that, you might do really light weights to just try and stretch it out, because you're actually lifting against your own restriction. So even though you're only lifting 5 kilos aside, if you're really tight, you're having to fight your own lats, so you've got the brakes on. So you might need to do some down dog work with that instead of pressing heavy, just to stretch your shoulders out more, or just stay with light weights, and then use your horizontal pushing. So you might do some horizontal chest press, push up, dips, all of those movements to go a bit heavier on the shoulders while you're still opening up in that overhead position. You don't want to try and press really heavy overhead if you don't have a nice line there, because you're only going to put more pressure into the lower back and you're just developing your chest, not your shoulders in that position. So you want to go back and look at the butcher's block. The hang handstand split warm up is great for opening up the shoulders, but that butcher's block stretch works really well. The pullover stretch, which is also in the program, works really well, but you want to make sure that you do have a good position before you force weight overhead. Let's have a look at the overhead press. So if you've got a good overhead pull and you're going with that dead hang, you're going to be able to get a nice position, but that can change once you put some load in there. So you can start out with the band. Some light dumbbells are a great way, and you want to film your pull-ups from the side but also your presses so you can see your alignment. So the band's quite simple, so you have the elbows in here, look straight ahead. You can have the knees soft if you like, but keeping the core nice and tight, head tall, and then pressing up, really trying to keep the ribs in, getting that nice strict straight line. Coming down, and pressing up, keeping the ribs in, press up nice and tall, and come down. So you might start out with that, it's not that heavy, but just get your reps up, get some volume up to really get nice alignment. You want to get that nice hang handstand split warm up down to open up the shoulder, but also the band warm up before that. So there's internal, external rotation exercises, all the band circles, going up and down, pulling and pushing in those positions all help stabilize and strengthen the shoulders. So you want to stay on top of those to really make the shoulders healthy in that position. Now if you've got dumbbells, that's good. I recommend investing in them if you are serious about your training. It just makes it a lot more practical, makes it a lot better in terms of how you can develop, because a barbell's great. I like barbells. They just don't allow for a natural rotation. So if you've got a restriction on one side, just like the rings, the dumbbells allow for that. So say for example, I've got one shoulder that just doesn't like to sit in that position. I can keep pressing and work around that position. So here you want to rack it on the shoulder, get nice and deep. You want the ends of the dumbbells to come right down to the shoulder so you're getting that full range, and you're going to press up overhead, getting that nice strict line, locking the elbows out, and then pausing at the bottom, pausing at the top. You don't want to arch the back, you want to open up, lock the elbows and come down. Now I like keeping the elbows in, so it's going to mirror that pull-up position. You can do them out. I don't recommend going out too wide. Definitely don't want to start arching the back and pressing. Keeping the elbows in is heavier on the shoulders and the triceps, because as you tend to go into a chest kind of press overhead once you start leaning back. You will lean back a little bit. The heavier the weight gets, the more it's going to push you back. And as you go up overhead, then you're going to stack up underneath that weight. Depending on how heavy it is. The barbell's great too. Just using a nice grip through there and pressing up overhead. Now, like I said before, if you are challenged with that overhead position, but you want to maintain muscle mass and you are quite strong horizontally and in dips, by all means stay, keep lifting heavy in those. Don't try and force the weight overhead if the alignment's not right. That's why it's so important for you to film and film it from the side, have a good look at it and submit it for coaching so we can have a look at it and really work on that flexibility to get a good stack. That way you're going to ensure your long-term development with the overhead press. Now, body weight wise, so once you can work between that 3 to 12 rep range with dumbbells or the barbell with a loaded version, or even the bands. Then you want to go into body weight versions. They are a lot heavier. You can go push up, down dog on the floor, and then you can go into more of the pike overhead press. So you can use 3 chairs for this. I just have this set up here so it works for me. If you've got the edge of some stairs, you can do it over the edge and just do the pike. So you can see the box is the same height as the parallettes. And that just means that that's the height I'm going to be at, but I can go past that because I'm going between the parallettes. Or if you have the edge of the step, you go over it so you get right down, so you're getting a full range of motion push. The problem with doing it on the floor is that you're only going to where the the head's going to touch the ground, so you're not going into that full range of motion. So you want to develop that a lot better for you. So I just position it shoulder just outside my shoulder width, and then here, you know, obviously the hamstring flexibility is going to allow for you to get a nicer position, so you can soften the knees if you need to. And then I'm lowering down and pressing up, piking right up. So take a big breath in, hold the breath, lower, and then press. And that's quite heavy for a lot of people. I see a lot of people rushing into handstand push-ups, and I was one of those. But it's very common for people to arch the back, squirm their way up in the handstand push-up. Plus, this is better because you're going deeper, and you're going to really develop a good controlled position going all the way down, full range of motion. It is a little bit lighter at the top depending on your flexibility and how much you can get your hips over. And the progression on this is obviously to raise the height of the feet, so that way you're getting more and more and more weight before, once you're getting that full top position, then you can start to work with a handstand push-up with all the weight up there. But I highly recommend this as a process and get this strong rather than rushing into that. That way you're going to develop a lot more strength, you're going to keep it a lot safer, and you're going to be able to train more consistently for a long time. The last thing you need is an injury that's going to slow down your progress. So film those side to side, from the side, sorry, and train them back to back. And if you are doing a whole body workout, you'd put left leg lunge in between the pull up and the press, and then a right leg lunge after. 2 to 3 minute rounds. I like 2 minute rounds, you know, that are more efficient, but if I've got a bit more time and I really want to get into it and I'm looking to get a bit more volume, I'll do 5 sets on a 3 minute round, and that's quite good. It is a 15-minute commitment compared to almost half that when you're doing a 2 minute round for 4 sets, and you're still getting most of the value that you would. You obviously don't get that next set performance, so you may not get as many reps. And that's why it's always important to take it all into consideration when you're looking at your improvement. So for example, your sets, your reps, your tempo, the rest periods between, the amount of rounds that you're doing, and what you've done before in that same workout, how much loading you've already put into your body. All those things need to be taken into your account when you're looking at, are you making progress? So I like total reps and just gradually inching those up. And I like to get people to around 40 reps in their pull-ups before they advance to weight shift versions or much heavier versions where they're adding extra weight to the pull-up. Get those into me, I'll see you soon.